wanted to elevate that to emphasize the importance of getting this issue taken care of, finding a way to pay for it, and getting the children back in schools.
Absolutely. That's why we're here today. And we have a chance to get kids back in school on the 6th if you guys take action today. Bottom line.
Dr. Butler, Greg Hook just said that you don't know that all these schools are infected. So how can you tell me how much it's going to cost until I know everything? So how can you ask me for money today when you don't know what the cost is going to be?
Well, I'm the superintendent of ABSS.
What's your number? I just don't have any information about that. I've got information about 3 schools. So I will move that we.
Sir, I'm sorry. We have not noticed the public.
I'm making a motion, Mr. Chairman. I'm not out of order. I'm making a motion. I have the floor. I have the floor. I'm making a motion.
The monies to continue the meeting is proper, but not to fund.
I make a motion.
State Senator Amy Galey wasn't sure why the Alamance Burlington school system could not use ESSER or COVID funds for mold remediation, while Commissioner Lashley was asking Superintendent Dane Butler for clarity on a dollar amount, while Commissioner Craig Turner made a motion that was ruled out of order by Commissioner Paisley. But was it? This was the joint session meeting between the Alamance County Commissioners and the Alamance Burlington School Board. They spent $25 million eventually to remediate mold. But how did they get to that point? Well, we're picking up part 2 of the August 28th, 2023 joint session meeting between both groups. Let's listen and see what the discussion was about and how they worked out to pay for this mold remediation.
I would like to know how much ESSER funds COVID relief money is still available. I shared with, when the situation came up, I reached out to the Department of Public Instruction and was told their person that it looked like $7.8 million is remaining in ESSER 3 money, but they couldn't say for sure, because some of it may not have had receipts. And I've asked how much ESSER 3 is still available for COVID relief, which a big part of the COVID relief was intended to clean the air because of COVID, but I understand can be used for whatever you're trying to clean it for. So how much money is left?
Ms. McVeigh.
So in all of our ESSER funds, from the report that was indicated in the questions that we got, as you know, that compiles all of the categories that we had received. So we have a little over $34 million that is budgeted across the board in all of our remaining ESSER funds. The largest piece of that, which was a little over $26 million that we set aside for these HVAC projects. So that's the largest piece of the remaining funds.
So here you have a question by Senator Amy Galey. She's asking the money because they need money to remediate the mold, and she's looking at probably what would be considered the most ideal situation to utilize the money to clean up the schools and get the kids back in school. And what I don't know her name, but the lady from ABSS, I believe it's Miss McVeigh, she said there was actually $34 million in the ESSER or /COVID funds. $26 million of that was taken up in HVAC contracts. So it leaves it around $8 million-ish. I believe you hear somebody say something about $10 million. I'm not sure what the discrepancy is, but it looks like about $8 million-ish is left over. And the discussion is going to continue with whether they can use that money, and listen to the conversation that unfolds.
We have a little over $34 million in all of our ESSER categories. A little over $26 million is budgeted for the HVAC projects, which we do have purchase orders and contracts in place with Salmon to complete those projects. The remaining funds, as you indicated, were issued in specific categories to address COVID costs. We have plans in place for evening academy, tutoring, and summer school to help address the learning loss needs that we're required to meet.
So but you don't want to spend it on this because you have other stuff that you want to spend it on. Is that right?
We're according to our contacts, we are not allowed to spend it on the mold remediation.
So Senator Amy Gailey asked the question again. You're not going to use this money because you want to spend it on other things? Well, she said 26 million of it was tied up in those HVAC contracts. I believe she said with Samet. And then the remaining was going to be utilized for some type of an evening learning academy to make up for COVID learning loss. And Senator Gailey, I'm not sure exactly what she said. It sounded like she said, so you're going to use it for other things instead of the mold. I'm not sure the context, the clarity on that, but seems like she got a little upset or perturbed at that comment that they were going to use it for the evening academy when they had such a pressing moment on them with the mold remediation and getting the kids back in school. But listen as it continues.
That's not, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I didn't mean to cut you off. That's not what I understand from DPI. Jamie Falconberry says, his email, which I think you all have already seen, you should be able to use ESSER money for at least part of this project as long as you make the justification. The data shows students learn better in school and they need the buildings up to code so students can get back in the classrooms to accelerate their learning. And I'm having trouble understanding the holding funds aside to remediate learning when you're going to have a week of learning because the schools have been shut down. And if you're going to wait until you get the certificate till you open up again, then you've got more learning loss. I'm having trouble understanding that. Help me understand why you can't use this ESSER funds that remain to take care of the mold and get the children back in
I
school.
understand it's not able to be used for that. That's the bottom line. That's what we were told. The federal government dictates how that money can be used.
That was our understanding. So if we need to have a further conversation,
And Senator Amy Gailey has a good point. She had received an email from someone in DPI, Department of Public Instruction, I believe it is, from North Carolina, who said that the funds could be used as long as you qualified it with that statement that she just read, that it would improve the learning environment, clean environment, it would help kids learn. And it would get them back in school instead of having them out of school, virtual, that would increase learning loss even more. But the school system, Superintendent Dane Butler says that they can't use that money for that. And he'll explain that, I think, if he hasn't already.
we certainly do that, but we were under the assumption
I
to address learning loss.
To you on Thursday, I would think that you all would have gotten to be able to get a response to that question and reach out to DPI and find out from them what their guidelines are. Do you have a confirmation that you can't use it?
It's not possible. I understand he thinks that, but of course, at the federal level says that. And that would mean a bad audit for us if we did that. I know there's a conflict of agreement there, but that's what we were told.
I'm having a really hard time understanding why, if you can budget it for HVAC and cleaning the air, that it can't be used for cleaning the air. I'm having a hard time understanding that.
And that is a good point, but the funds were federally given, and so I would expect one to go to the federal government and ask their advice and their input. In fact, that's what's going to happen here. You know, the thing is, Senator Amy Gailey, she could sit there and say that she's surprised they haven't done their homework. It appears they have. And it appears that maybe the state delegation did not do theirs in going to the next level of looking at it from a federal perspective. It's federal funds. You better talk to someone it's in the federal rankings that can give you guidance on this. That's what I would have done. I would have gotten both. I would have contacted our state as she did, but then I would have taken it to the next level. And so it's hard for me to believe that you criticize one group for not doing something and you didn't. You should, if the state delegation had asked the federal group, they might have told them this would result in a bad audit for the school system. And so, I mean, it's just troubling that that question arises. I mean, in this, to the sense that them not doing their homework, and yet, it seems like the state delegation could have taken it another step up and really tried to clarify that. But I do understand her point. Why are we not able to use the money to clean air when that is exactly what HVAC systems do? But with that being said, let's continue.
Ms. McVeigh, to follow up on Ms. Gailey's question, how much have we used overall in ESSER refunds for contracted repairs and maintenance for land and buildings and pending POC, including that $26 million encumbrance? Because it says we can only use up to 5%.
Right, but we planned the budget several years ago. The current allocation is a little over 26 million. We do have POs in place.
So can those contracts be canceled? You have a PO in place. Have you signed a contract? I don't know what exactly that entails.
You want us to cancel the contracts for the HVAC?
So now, Chair Lady Sandy Ellington Graves for the Alamance Burlington School Board asked, I think it's Ms. McVeigh, specifically about those funds, and then Senator Amy Gailey asked, can those contracts, are they necessary? I mean, can we do something with them? Can we cancel them? And Sandy Ellington Graves says, ask her the question, do you want us to? And of course, the right answer there is what Senator Gailey gave, is no, we don't want to cancel the contracts that are already in place.
No, I don't understand what those exactly were for, but I guess I'm struggling with the understanding that there's $34 million remaining in ESSER funds. The children aren't in school. How do you get them in school? And I would hope that the county commissioners, if the ESSER funds that were going to go for the HVAC are used to renew, so you can get the children back in school, I would hope that the county would step in and make that right for you all.
If Senator Gailey is saying use ESSER funds on record, we'll visit. To my knowledge, we cannot, but we'll certainly adhere to what you're saying.
I'm telling you, thank you for helping me to clarify that.
I mentioned their county commissioners coming to the table too. I don't know if that's what they want to do.
That was a little bit of a humorous time there. That was funny. So anyway, I know it's difficult to understand, but please read the captions down below, and that'll hopefully bring some clarity to that. Now they're going to get into some more discussion about the pots of money that the school system has that can be used for this. So let's listen to this.
I haven't gotten through these accounts. That's just one. Let's discuss the other 4 or 5 that we have at our fingertips.
Before we go there, let's get through this first account first. The question, Ms. Gailey, is the ESSER funds that are left. There's 34 million, Ms. McVeigh, 26 million of that is encumbered for the HVAC project. The remaining 10 million-ish is for running losses and DPI for the federal government. There are certain buckets that $10 million collectively is in, and these are the things we can spend it on, and HVAC and air quality is not one of those. Is that correct?
That's currently how it is budgeted.
Okay.
So I've got a question. So what you're saying is for us to put the heating and cooling that in most cases is the problem for the mold, rob that money, kick it back, and then who knows when we'll be able to get on the schedule to get these other HVAC systems. We could be doing this again. And
what I'm saying is everybody in this room has got to do whatever it takes to make this happen.
Yes, sir.
And so however we got to do it, go your bond, you go mine. We got to make sure that if we have to rob Peter to pay Paul, that.
Let me pause there just for a second. One of the things that I really would like to see happen is not just these blanket statements that are made about what needs to happen, about, everybody I think there knows what needs to happen as far as getting the kids back in school. And Commissioner Thompson is saying we need to do whatever we need to do to make this happen. And I get a sense of urgency and understand what she's saying to a point, but everybody there understands that the main goal is to get the kids back in school. The question is, how do you pay for it to get them back in school? And I think board member Marsh said, so you're telling me you want to take that money from HVAC systems and use it for mold, and who knows when we'll be able to get the HVAC money back. And again, we're going back and forth. Let's come with a plan. Let's come with a plan and figure out how to do this. Know what pots of money are there. I think there's a few that have done this, have done the homework, and know what monies are there. And maybe all of them do. I'm not sure what information they were given prior to the meeting, but I would like to see them, instead of just saying, we've got to do, I want to hear specifics. I want to hear you lay out detail. I want to hear a business mind behind these decisions, not just something, just a lump thing that everybody agrees with. Being a leader means you make the hard decisions. It means you speak up and you say, hey, this is what we need to do, or we're going to do this. I think we need to do this. And that's what I'm thinking this group needs to do. And it eventually happens, but these blanket statements, it's troubling to me a little bit, because I want to hear somebody go into detail. And this will not be the only time during this meeting that I say that. So let's continue to listen to the different monies that the school system has. They're going to walk through. I think there's 5 of them. They've already went through the ESSER funds. Now they're going to hit the lottery funds in just a little bit, and they'll work their way to the 5th fund. So follow along with that. It's federal money. If you're a taxpayer and you pay federal taxes, it's your money. We pay state taxes too. It's our money. You need to know where your money's going. We need to not only stand for them, we need to get involved. So let's listen to what they say.
Haley mentioned earlier, because I'm of the same mind about the use of the federal fund. Both Senator Gailey, Representative Ross, and myself, we've all reached out to contacts within state government. Some the same, some different. And this is from a different individual in our fiscal research department regarding COVID relief funds. So the federal government made 90% of the elementary and secondary schools emergency relief ESSER funds available directly to LEAs with wide discretion on use. Improving student health is an allowable use. So these funds, according to this individual from fiscal research, as they would be available to use for mold remediation.
I said, who was that?
That was in our fiscal research staff. And they handle all of the financing individual in education. I think it was from the state. So I guess we need to both ask a little further up the chain.
Yeah.
What's
I'd like
possible.
to know if other LEAs have used those funds. They've been audited for that.
So Dane just right there says, and I applaud our state delegation. I mean, you've asked the people in the state areas what these funds can be used for. They were given an answer, but I surely would have taken it to the next level of asking the feds, because it's federal money. And as Dane said, he has been informed that it would result in a bad audit. Now, I'm not sure who's got the right information, but I would assume, since it's federally funded, I would go there, and then I would try to find out exactly what those funds could be used for.
Madam Chair.
To think about too.
That's something you want to share.
I did. So staff has reached out to the federal programs director at DPI, and they've indicated that this is not abatement for this purpose. It's not COVID related, would not be a cause of reasonable or allowable to use COVID funds or ESSER funds. Federal programs director at DPI.
I'd like to get that name.
But they just said because it wasn't related to COVID epidemic, that's
Getting
why.
different stories.
I'd like to get that name.
Yes, ma'am.
So he just came in with some information that said the federal a person from the federal department of these funds said that was not a usable a way to use the money. And Senator Amy Gailey, she asked for the information that he just had, the name of the individual, and she'd like the number so that she could contact him. And that's the right thing to do, to try to follow up and to make sure exactly what's being said is accurate, and to make sure that those are the guidelines. So with that being said, let's continue.
I'd be happy to talk to Steve.
Calls and emails to finish, just briefly, the calls and emails that I'm receiving, the biggest thing in this county, parents want their kids in school. They don't want them sitting in front of the computer. I'm hearing it, I mean, just all over the place. And, we've got to do that. We've just got to do that. Getting back. That's the same thing I'm getting in email.
I'll share some.
And see, that's another, I mean, I don't think there's anybody at that table that has not probably received some form of email. And again, he's just saying, okay, they're getting emails. Absolutely, they're getting emails. They want the kids back in school. But again, that is knowledge I think that everybody at the table knows. The question again is, how do you propose we make it happen? That's the question. I believe it was Commissioner Steve Carter said he's getting emails too. Okay, well, let's put some business sense to this and let's make a motion. Let's do something, you know, instead of just telling the facts of what everybody already knows. Add to the conversation. Everybody knows the parents want to get their kids back in school. I don't think that's new knowledge. So I appreciate the passion, but you're not strategically putting together a plan, putting something in place that will help resolve this issue.
With y'all, because I know that a number of you Board of Education folks ran because you disagreed with how long ABSS was kept virtual. And so, for example, Union County Schools, they were the first ones to go back to full in-person learning as soon as they could. They pushed the envelope and pushed it. So I did a little research this morning at the school report cards. If you look at Union County, their 4-year graduation rate for 21-22 is 92.3%. Their reading non-proficient is 37%, and their math 1 non-proficient is 49%. For ABSS, our 4-year graduation rate is 86% versus 92.3. Our reading non-proficient is 63 versus 37. And our math 1 non-proficient is 70 versus 49. Statewide is 67, and statewide the reading non-proficient is 52. This is so important, though. I know that I believe that you all have done some discussion, some work about the chronic absenteeism and what a problem it is for the school system. For ABS, for the state, the chronic absenteeism 21-22 school year was 31.8. For ABSS, it was 41.34%. For Union County, it was 27.53%. And you might think, oh, well, that's probably because, we have the economically disadvantaged people. Maybe they, change our average versus other people. No, Alamance, economically disadvantaged, chronic absenteeism, 49.72%. Union County, 46.75%. So it's almost the same. When you don't have school, there's a concrete and real impact on these children. And I know that you all know that. So I just wanted to elevate that to emphasize the importance of getting this issue taken care of, finding a way to pay for it, and getting the children back in schools.
Absolutely. That's why we're here today. We have a chance to get kids back in school on the 6th if you guys take action today. Bottom line.
Dr. Butler, Greg Hook just said that you don't know that all these schools are infected. So how can you tell me how much it's going to cost until I know everything?
I cannot.
So how can you ask me for money today when you don't know what the cost is going to be?
Well, I'm the superintendent of ABSS. I purchased
What's your number?
the kids.
What number?
Well, Senator Galen had a conversation about Andrews being 7,000, Newland being 5. Those are smaller. Williams are probably going to be.
So do I multiply 35 times 500?
No, we didn't say 35. We had 5 schools right now, but could there be more? Of course. We're going to have to wait for more to come up because we've got to have places to shuffle these kids around so they can be in person and learning. Because if we don't do something now, if we get one more school pop up, we're going to be virtual. We have nowhere to put them.
And I think right now, if I'm not mistaken, they've already either completed or almost completed, I think 2 elementary schools. Now the schools that they know that are infected, I think it's Williams, Cummings, and Broadview, because at the end, that's what Craig Turner makes a motion to clean up, because those are the only ones that they know of. The others are currently being walked through to determine which ones have mold and which don't, and the severity of it.
Totally agree. The right thing to do is to have a number, but Mr. aspect there, his operation doesn't operate that way. He's the only.
The man's name is Mr. Bass. I know it sounded bad, but the guy who works for Builder Services is Mr. Bass. So anyway.
Person I know that has said to us, yeah, we got a chance to get back in school on Tuesday. I'm at his mercy.
Mr. Hook, can you get Mr. Bass a total square footage of our building across this district ASAP, please?
You know that you don't know. You don't know how many schools are infected. So how can, you can say 5 and that's okay. Because that's why I ask you.
I agree.
How many schools were confirmed?
We need a commitment from this county. We need a
don't have a
commitment.
number.
I don't need a number. I need a commitment from
You
these
don't need a
commissioners
number.
that we're going to take care of the situation for our children. That's what we need.
But you don't have a number. So how can I come here today and tell you I can help you when you don't have a number for me to
So it sounded like board member Bowden, I think he might be the vice chair of the Alamance Burlington School Board. He said he wanted a total square footage of all the schools, and then he could give Commissioner Lashley a number. But Commissioner Lashley says then you don't know because the schools are still in the process of being walked to be determined what needs to be cleaned up. And Bowden continued to push forth needing a commitment from the commissioners, and Commissioner Lashley continued to say, we need more information. We need numbers. And so with that being said.
So anything against?
We don't have all the information that you need. We don't have all the information that we need. And what we do need from this county is a commitment that you're going to help us take care of these county buildings so we can get our kids back in the school. I don't have a dollar number for you today. But I need a commitment saying that you're going to work with us to get that dollar number. And when we get that information, that has to be our goal.
We're walking through this process. We've only got through one account. Let's walk through your accounts and see how much money you actually have to dedicate to this program.
So what do you think? Do you think they're right for going ahead and asking for a commitment from the commissioners? Or do you think the commissioners should know more information about the cost? Or do you think it should be a little bit of both? What do you think about that?
Problem.
What's next, Mr. May? What's next on
Next one I'd like to ask is the lottery funds. How much do you have in lottery funds available?
Okay, so currently on our books, we have 20,000 available. Checking the reports on DPI that shows monies that gets allocated to us each quarter. We currently have a little over 2,600,000. And so as you're aware, with lottery, there will be a process for us to be able to use that. So that is what I currently know about that as of today.
And the lottery funds come in quarterly?
We usually drop money every.
So the quarter started in July, so you can get some funds and into September. Thank you.
I think Ms. Evans might have some clarifying information on that too.
I do have some questions for Ms. Evans.
So good.
I'm just not ready to ask those yet. The third account that we should take a look at is your capital reserve fund. You know what's currently in the capital reserve fund.
I can talk about what we currently have on our books. For this year, we have budgeted a little over 17 million. We have expenses and POs already in place that take up a good 3 million of that, which leaves 4,900,000, which is specified according to Mr. Hook's plan for various projects, such as road improvement, 4 sites, roofing at 5 sites. And so he can speak further about any commitments we are in that process.
Kind of have some look.
I'm glad to speak to that. I wanted to go back to the first fund that discussed. $26 million in escrow. You're locked up in a contract with Samet for that at 8 different sites. All the work is underway in various stages, and all the materials designed for those sites has been ordered. And I would defer to our attorney, Mr. Mitchell, to discuss what would happen less out of a contract that we. The second one, the lottery money, the 2.3, we requested 700,000 for Western Track. I don't know if that's included in the 7, or if that's held out. So the request that we've already made, or that. Not yet.
No.
So we can push that back, but that 2.3 is inclusive of the 700. So then the third type of accounts you mentioned was the capital reserves. We are in some contracts with that, and they're in various stages, so I can just speak to some of those. So we've got equipment on site at Alexander Wilson for the driveway project there. We're in a contract for that. For the AO and EM Holt, we paid for the design, but we're not in a construction contract with those. So that is money that we're talking about redirecting. That's available. Then we have multiple projects. We have the Hall River roof project, the Graham Middle roof project, the Graham High roof project, and the Southern High roof project. I have a presentation on the status of those tonight. But in a nutshell, Hall River's ready to go to bid maybe in a week. Water's coming in there in this while. Middle's ready to go to bid in a couple of weeks, and water's coming in there. Graham High to go bid next, late September, early October, and there's lots of water coming in areas there. And then Southern High would be next, go out to bid in October. It's not so bad with the Fire 3. So those are places where we've spent money on, engaged in POs, contracts for the design, but not for contracts to do. So I'd be, in some of them, especially where the water's coming in, I think it's contributory to the same thing that we're thinking about the mold. So just be cautious there. Hall River Masonry project, we're in a contract for that one. I'm just speaking in general to all the capital reserves. So we can for that, and that work is probably over halfway there. So back to Mr. Lashley's, this is original discussion on this type of account. There is some locked up, and then there's some that's not locked up.
No, Chair, do we have an amount, once you take these contracts off, amount that's left in the fund, in the balance, in capital?
I would not be the one that would have that information.
Say that again, Mr. Engel.
In other words, we've talked about all these contracts. That's fine. Well, certainly deduct those from the total.
Right.
What have we got left?
We know what we have left, Mr. Gray.
As of right now, with the purchase orders and the expenses that we've paid in capital reserves, there's a little over 14 million that has not been utilized.
Is it earmarked for anything contractually?
Not to my knowledge.
I'd be glad to run the numbers while we're in this meeting. It's closer to a number. The next thing I would mention, we've got 3 more roofs. On the roofs, where water's really coming in, and we goes out to design quickly, and that's tied into all the concerns. There's water coming in these through need to go to design much or more than the ones that are already in design.
Is it top 10 list?
Yes. Western High, Western Mid.
And from now on, we're calling that what? It's the unfunded, what is that list called? Mr. Bateman?
We had a top 10 and the next 10.
Top 10 and next 10.
Thank you, Mr. Hook. Mr. Lashley.
Yes.
Hey, let me stop here just a second and say I am quite impressed at this point with Greg Hooks, the guy who's telling him the things about the school. You need someone in the position like this, knowing what's taking place in these schools, what they need. And I've listened to him in several meetings, not just this one, several meetings. And I think he's really trying, and I wish him all the best, and I hope he's able to continue to do this because he seems like he's really driven to help correct this problem to get the schools back in the shape that they should be in, and it's good to have someone who can give this information, and that's encouraging.
Let me just go back to.
I'd say, ask one question. We danced around that several times and I haven't seen it change in the number from 14.7. It's gonna work. It's gonna work. Yeah, he's good.
Okay, we just got finished speaking about the capital reserve fund. And what I heard is, I heard 14.9 million that could be available. Second,
Yes, Mr. Hook's going to give us a number.
and I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. The next particular account I'd like to talk about is the unrestricted fund balance.
Pertaining to the PAYGO capital funds.
I think it's been discussed as.
So what I can speak to is, I'll go back just 1 year in time to our audited fund balance in our capital PAYGO funds, which was 21-22. At that time, it was $1,662,000. So once we finish our 22-23 audit, which is in the works, they'll be done probably the middle of October. I am estimating we are using 1.4 million of that, which leaves us a little over 252,000 in unassigned GO fund balance.
You repeat that, please? Just the bottom line.
252,000.
252,000.
But the problem with that is the PAYGO's paid monthly. It's actually $3.3 million. So every month you get 1/12 off $3.3 million every single month in addition to it.
We talked at one time about making that available on a quarterly basis for it to be more available.
It hasn't happened.
It hasn't happened, but we could make that available more quickly, I suppose.
If the board takes that up, that could happen.
What is it, about 400,000? And 3.3 million, that's what you're going to.
275.
275.
275. And I'll go a step further, Mr. Carter. I'll go a step further since they have this issue. This may be a good time. And as one, an opportunity to give them the balance of what we were going to give them anyway.
There's no problem with that at all.
It's just an idea. I've not talked to them. I guess the only other thing I wanted to discuss with these particular accounts is, and this may be something that you may have it at your fingertips. The unspent bond proceeds in 2018, is there anything left over from original projects that were initially proposed? Is there anything, and also do you expect to be going to the bond market in October?
Mr. Hooks presented a PowerPoint at our July 15th meeting, which speaks to each site and what we may or may have used for each site. He may give you a better update on that. See them crunching numbers.
Yeah, it's quite busy right now.
Yes.
I got an email on that.
So, yeah, right now, we only have all of the bond projects closed out where we are paying any more in the pay apps to the contractor. One of them is Southern High School. The other is South Mebane. Still trying to clear up the money that we were paying outside the contract with the contractor for asbestos abatement and tile replacement, those sites. So we're still trying to get everything closed out. At this point, we do have the amount of money that we said was still available. I was calling it unused or undesignated money.
Slides up if you want to reference certain.
I have it.
7,500,000.
Roughly at 7,500,000, which from the outset was never tied to any project budget. In each school budget, though, we do have some funds available, and as we go to the close of each of those, there will be funds available. I've mentioned before in our meetings and in the commissioners' meetings, we like to fulfill what we set out to do and use those high school sites for cameras and door access. If it was enough to cover once we close out the pay apps to contractors to ensure we have enough left. So that's another area that could be looked at, but then it would short some of the expectations that we had in the beginning with the bond projects for security. So outside of what's already budgeted and the amount that would be left over, address some of those projects like cameras and key cards, we know for sure that we're sitting at $7.5 million.
Actually, I have additional areas if you.
I could go all day, but I'll let you go.
What about,
Chairman, you might be interested in some information that our county attorney has researched.
Yes, I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention that in the midst of the discussion, I found a U.S. Department of Ed article talking about allowable funds usages for ESSER. One of the specifically mentioned, excuse me, one of the specifically mentioned allowable uses in that article is mold remediation.
You know, it's unbelievable. Only in government can you have so many, I mean, just so much confusion. It is absolutely ridiculous. Who's right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just unbelievable what government, the confusion that government brings to situations.
that opens up another category. What about fines and fees and so forth in the court system? Do we have any number? Did you guys receive all of that? Do you have a number there?
We operate off of the estimated allocation that the county uses, which has pretty much been about 800,000 each year as an estimated amount. Some years higher than that, a little bit. Some years could be lower than that. But that is set aside in our local funding, which helps pay for our local needs like the SMART contract and
I'm new to you. Okay, Mr. Lashley, you had talked to me over the weekend about a loan. Yes, available.
It's an energy saving grant. Do you know? Is that? It was a loan gained by Alamance Burlington School System. Well, it's actually from the bank. Most of the money is Bank of America. So I wanted to discuss that. I think there was a $10.2 million loan you guys received. And I just wanted to see basically if you had any money left over. I couldn't see a whole lot about how it wasn't given to you like our capital improvement, where it's divided in 12. So I wanted to see if that loan, first of all, did you receive that loan? And secondly, how much have you used from that energy? I think it's an energy saving grant. I could be wrong in my.
yes, they call it that, or they call it the Alamance contracting as well, which was implemented in November of 2018. Was in place. So to my understanding, when you agree to participate in that, you have a team come in and they assess your needs. The biggest thing is lighting. Change those out. It can help save facility bills, as well as they divided our schools up into a couple of tiers based on the need and scope of work. Some of which includes lighting, heating, cooling, HVAC motors, and miscellaneous items. I could not find in this paperwork exactly who was allocated which needs. It's pretty much lighting across the board district. And the reason we have the loan is they paid for the lights that we needed to replace throughout the district. In turn, we take out the loan to pay that back. So we pay on that every year. And that was for a 20-year cycle. So we're barely into a few payments on that loan to Bank of America.
Wow. So that means if it's a 20-year loan and you do the math, it seems like there's still, like she said, quite a long time that's going to be paid on that loan. I'd like to know a little bit more about that, but I don't.
Good part of that being used for HVAC.
They did assess some sites. But I cannot find any documentation that gives me exactly which sites had those needs.
That potentially could address some of Mr. Hook's issues about particularly HVAC systems.
Right, but these were things that were already done and put in place. So it's like,
Money's
there's no
already gone.
money sitting here
The money's
based
gone.
on this. We are now paying back the needs that were addressed through a loan.
And Commissioner Paisley, he assumed there were funds there that were available, but now they're explaining to him that it's a loan that they're currently paying back.
There's no money for
Prior
us to
administration.
access.
Just to for clarity, the work has been done,
Yes,
the payment has been dispersed, and we are now paying back that.
we are paying back. No money, any funding category that we have access to for this because it's all.
That takes it off. Yes, thank you.
What year was that, Mr.?
This agreement was in November of 2018.
Dr. Butler, in our June the 19th meeting and prior to that, I think in another meeting, indicated you saved or cut $7.7 million. Where did that money, that savings go? Is it available?
No, it covered the overspending from previous administration. Our fund balance right now is 1
1.2 is my estimate.
If we had not made those cuts, we would be in the red.
Thank you.
Yep, yes, sir. That's a good question.
I think that, I've had several people ask the same thing.
Additionally, are there any other grants or
So
She was actually in place before any of this.
Ms. McVeigh, are there any other grants or other monies that we've not talked about thus far sitting out there?
No knowledge.
Yes, I have one other question for Mr. Hook. Just was writing down a list of things that you're currently working on. And I just want to make sure, Ms. McVeigh, that I wasn't talking about numbers that are different because the numbers that I'm looking at are similar to yours. I also see some money that the Alamance County Commissioners actually funded quite a few projects in 21, 22, and 22, 24. And I'm looking at information that suggests that none of those projects in 21 and 22 have been completed. And I think that's what you said today, that you were talking about Alexander Wilson, the Drive project. But when I go down, reason I'm pointing that out is because we're looking for money that we could use to fix a problem that we have. As I'm looking at this, is the money has already been allocated to ABSS for these projects that you were just talking about. I'm just going to list some. I'm going to go over pretty much similar. So if you get Alexander Wilson, Altamont Ospey, E.M. Holt Elementary, Graham High, Hall River Elementary twice, Southern High roof, and various middle schools, 500,000. That was 21, 22. Now, all I'm asking you is can you look at the past 2 years and pick out some projects that you haven't completed? Maybe you're to a spot that you have started to complete them. But are there any projects in the past 2 years that the county commissioners, the way I look at it, is $17.5 million? And that number was a bit different than what you gave me, but we're looking at a different funding source. They were very similar, and I wanted to make sure that the funding source you were talking about was different than the funding source I was talking about. And I think that we both can agree that they are different. So let's just ask, I want to ask Mr. Hooks a question. If you had to go through just the last 2 years of projects from 2021 to 2023, I see some in 2021 that are still in the process of being completed as well. Southern High being a vocational building and a road improvement.
Southeast.
Yes. Right, glasses don't work. But I just wanted to take a look. I see that, I just wanted to ask you if there's anything that you could do in those previous 2 years that funds weren't already allocated to these projects. Because it appears that these projects take a considerable amount of time to complete. So, you know, when I'm looking back 2 years and I don't see anything that's been presented to my finance staff that you're asking for money, because I do see that it is broken up by projects, allocations, and expenses as of 8/23 for all of these projects that we're currently working on. And the numbers I'm seeing, and Ms. McVeigh, if you see something wrong, please tell me. I see that was like roughly almost $21 million for these particular projects going back to 2021. I did not include that year because there are some projects that are being, so I didn't want to touch those projects. But I wanted to take a look at the past 2 years and see if there's any way that you could, I'm looking at numbers here that's like a $17.298 million available. I understand that those numbers aren't complete because you just got finished saying that you're in the process of doing some things, but anything that you have in design process would not be a big ticket item. And I think this might be an opportunity for look at those particular projects listed. That's just the first year. And maybe you could find some money that you could use for this particular problem. I know that it just may be something that you may have to go to your computer and look at it because it was quite extensive when I was pulling it all up.
I can give you a close answer now.
Yes, sir. Thank
Just to
you.
clarify, the numbers you gave for capital reserves, I think you said 14 million. Some of that's
14.9.
that's unencumbered, unencumbered funds. I do my quick math. I end up with, I would say 14.5. Reason being, we still haven't getting some invoices from some of the design companies committed to them, the design aspect. So I would go from the 14.9 down to 14.5 to be safe. For example, on Hall River Roofing, for some reason, they haven't been invoicing us, but that one's done. So it's something that they haven't done correctly as far as we had the Hall River Masonry and the Hall River Roofing, and they maybe have mixed them at the design company as far as how they're
So if
sending that.
if the
So
project's in a design phase, you haven't, I guess I shouldn't say this, but have you inked a deal with the company to come in and do it? So in essence, you're just paying for the design phase. So in essence, you would have the design phase ready to go. You also have the money that was allocated for that project minus the design phase would be left over.
that's right. And that's where I get my 14.5. I will say that designs are more or less timeless. So the engineer does the design work, when you get to it this year, next year, or the next year, design is the design. And when you're ready to go out to bid, you engage with that designer firm to help us manage the bid process and manage the management of the contractor and its through. So we have 14.5 that's basically unencumbered. You asked me which ones could we possibly put off. I would say Southern High Roofing, $5 million. AO Traffic, probably have about 780,000 left in that after the design fees. And Holt Traffic started at roughly 1.2, but we've spent 60 on design. So you're looking at almost to $7 million. Holt Traffic, AO Traffic, Southern High Roofing. The reason I didn't mention Grand Middle, Graham High Roofing, and Hall River is because the water's coming in. We put those off, it's just moving a mold issue to another place, so to speak. But then the other thing I do want to mention again, we're ready to ask to go to design for Western Middle, Western High, and V. Everett Jordan. Again, just to request the design money, which is kind of the direction we want to go. Across those three, we'd be asking for roughly 1.2, ballpark that number, to get those three projects in design. The priority would be Western Middle, Western High. Jay, we could push it on down the road a little bit, but again, design's timeless. Once all those patches let go, being the fix, with the others. So that would just be a number that I would keep in mind is 1.2 out of the 7 we could flex to some degree.
Roofing is probably the foundation of why all this has happened.
You're right.
It's a big part of it.
EJ is one of them that we got to complain about, isn't it?
Yes, yes and no, and yes. We pulled out some carpet this summer at the EJ where water had been coming in and staff was expressing a current concern. So we went ahead there and went for carpet to some tile in some areas. We get lucky sometimes with the roof patching. The answer to your question, roofing is the cause, yes and no. Yes, so is HVAC.
We saw that with the lawsuit, you know, the other ones that we had to go back and seal were broken and stuff like that. And that's roofs. The whole system could be re-roofed. I mean, some of them are really old and they're showing.
So did you have any questions on that? I'll let you go. Go ahead. No. It's on top. It's on topic. It's on topic. I just wanted to touch briefly about the legal uses of these pots of money, and Mr. Stevens may have some insight into that. We've talked about use of reserve, capital reserves, and also money savings from the bond projects that have not yet been expended. You have a thought about whether it's proper to spend money on bond projects that have been saved for mold remediation?
To the extent that the fund is allocated for capital use, again, I'm learning here today like everyone else, but the work that was described earlier as far as cleaning doesn't seem to me to fall within the parameters of a capital expenditure. If there is work being done to prevent that from being needed in the future, if we're abating the issues that led to the mold being there, then that would, in my opinion, be a capital expenditure.
That would be proper for capital reserve or for bond savings or for both?
I possibly for both.
Okay. And there have been some concerns about the use of bond money for mobilization, and we'd have to double check on that, but it ties into this capital reserve discussion because if there's $7 million unencumbered in ABSS's capital reserves now, you would lose your roofing project. You could backfill that 7.5 million in unexpended bond money to make that whole. So there's money in the system. It's just using it in its proper sources.
If you're robbing the high schools, the cameras.
Well, you got 7.5 million in unencumbered.
And Mr. Marsh, those $500,000 for cameras were given to the school system.
Those are for middle schools, bro.
For a year ago.
Middle schools.
I'm just telling you what the information I have in front of me.
And how much you say?
$500,000.
$500,000 doesn't even cover one school.
Well, that's what was given to the ABSS in 21, 22.
That wasn't us. And that wasn't him.
Just telling you that I have to look at it from what the county gives the school system. I don't.
Mr. Marsh, that was some of you. I don't think you were on the board at the time, but some were. And so, and I don't think Hooks, I think he come on later as well. But that was some that are there. And it's a good question to be asked and a good comment to be made, especially, when you're saying it's not us or yourself, but it was some that were on the board during that time that are there now.
Make a note on who was sitting in the seats to make the decisions. I'm just telling you that this is the information that I received from my finance team. Let me know what we had funded and amounts. That's all I asked for. And then I wanted to cross-reference this to see if any of those projects had been completed, to see if the money would be available for this particular problem. So I'm just trying to backfill. I'm just trying to approach this problem like any family in this county would if they had a problem in which it was going to be a large expense. That you go and you see how much money you have available at your disposal to see if I can get this done without having to go to the bank to borrow it. In this particular case, I'm not suggesting you go to the bank to borrow it, but it's still, you should still go through that exercise.
And I think that's a good point. Bill Ashley is correct there. It is a good exercise to go through.
Real quick, the only other two things I had was that I was alluding to Ms. Evans earlier, that we're looking at the lottery funds that are available. I think there are two different buckets of lottery funds. There's the repair and
There's the repair and renovation
which is
fund.
about 601,000.
Yes.
And there's the main fund, which is about 2.6 million available to use. Of course, ABSS is required to pay 1.4 million debt service. So that would leave 1.8 million available lottery funds that could be used for this. And then finally, we've talked about the 14 million in capital reserves. That's in ABSS's hands. There's also the 7.9 million in capital reserves that is still with the county that hasn't. So, I mean, there's money in the system.
Just need to know what the price tag is.
We need to know what the price tag is, and then we need to allocate it smartly based upon its use, it's designed and it's legal.
May I caveat on that as well, Commissioner Turner, is not only what funds are available, but getting into the scope of the project, to therefore verify that capital funds can be used for loan remediation, and that it's a capital project and not an operating.
And what's the difference in capital and maintenance from your perspective, Mr. Stevens?
The difference is that a capital project has to provide some sort of improvement or maintenance of the usable life of the building, rather than just repairs that are routine in nature and that should be performed as necessary along the way. So if the scope of the problem is such that the useful life of the building is shortened unless this work is performed, then that leads me to think that it's more along the lines of a capital expense. If it's not that or anything less than that, it's more like a repair.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Point of clarity, $500,000, that was provided by the county commissioners, I believe 2 years ago. 2021, 22. Thank you, Mr. President. And that was specifically to allow us to finish camera systems at the middle schools that did not have cameras, and that did bring all of our middle schools for that safety.
I have to disagree with that. I was chairman of the board at the time. And my recollection was you had an assault that occurred on the Southern High School campus, and there were inadequate cameras there. And that was specifically mentioned with that $500,000.
Chairman, you're right about that. And the school system actually came to us that particular evening you're speaking of and asked for $7.7 million. After we solved this issue and this problem, the county commissioners ponied up another $500,000 for the school system to take care of these problems.
That's correct.
Yeah, and that's very important to have those cameras in the school system. I think that's got to be a top priority. In fact, one person sitting at that table, I was watching a video of them in 2018. They actually said, well, not in 2018 did he say this, but in another meeting, he said that was his platform upon which he ran. And now I don't think all the schools have cameras in them yet, from what I'm understanding, but maybe that all the middle schools do. I'm not sure. But I think cameras, I mean, it's no doubt about it. They're very important. And it needs to be addressed. If they don't all have them, they need to identify the few that don't or which ones don't and get that corrected quickly.
I don't know how you received it or how you put it in your bucket when you received it. But I know that's how it was generated from the county commissioners.
I do have that accounted for in our capital reserves funds. And according to my records, we have either paid for or have POs in place and using this money with about $1,800 left over. So Mr. Hook has moved forward trying to get the middle schools that would fall into this category with cameras in place. So we use almost all those funds.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. I just want to draw attention to, if we reallocate the money, and it is that whole Peter pay it brother, Peter pay Paul. When I first came on the board, less than 6 months on the board, we had a presentation that was made with $73 million in unfunded capital projects that was made to this board and to the commissioners. I just hate to see us take money and reallocate it without the commitment from the commissioners that we are going to pick up. I've got spreadsheets of $73 million. So these don't go away, and the longer that we put them off, the worse they get and the more expensive they get. So if we reallocate this money because we agree it's the right thing to do, that's the case. We still need that commitment from the county commissioners that you are going to help us keep these schools where they need to be and keep them that way for the students in this county. And that's what scares me about reallocating and redirecting money for projects that we've all deemed as priority to remediate the mold, which is a new priority as well. The commitment has to follow if we're redirecting. When we come back to the table and ask for money, we're not gonna, we're not gonna get pushed back to take care of the buildings that benefit the kids in this county.
I wanted to ask Patty York a question and then make a comment. So the unassigned fund balance for the county, given to understand that you are reluctant to dip into those funds because the amount of the unassigned fund balance can impact the bond rating, and the county is getting ready to issue bonds for ACC. Is that right?
That's correct.
So I think that's reasonable, that the county has a reason, legitimate long-term financial reason, that they don't just release the hounds of cash. And
We're trying to be responsible. We're going to the bond market at the end of October on behalf of ACC.
All right, let me stop here. I'm sorry. This is beyond the purview of this meeting, but this bond issue that ACC, they went and took these Alamance Community College bonds in October 31st, 2023, and they took them to the market. And unlike ABSS, who got like less than a 1.5% interest rate, these bonds were sold at the highest rate since 2008, 2009. That area, if you remember anything about that bust at that time, and this is the rate at which these bonds are selling for, and they sold them. And this is not being responsible. We'll talk about this in another video, but this was not a responsible move to sell those bonds at that high of interest rate, which is going to place the burden on taxpayers. In fact, several millions of dollars, maybe $4, $5, $6 million. And Bill Lashley even spoke to that in one of the meetings that they had, because they waited so long. Now it's going to cost the taxpayers of Alamance County a lot more money. So that's another video, but don't think that the county is all honey and gold as well. They've got issues that should have been addressed and should not have taken place in selling these bonds at this worst time, in one of the worst times in economic history, in modern economic history. So
We don't want to jeopardize the bond rating.
But there'll be a time when that's over, and the unassigned fund balance will be more available than it is.
And it's at a healthy level, yes.
About what, 47 million short?
They're out there. Last year's audit, she's pulling that up. So.
I think they said 17 million currently, but it increases every year. The bond, that's an excellent comment, because if we do that, that will jeopardize ACC's bond money that was passed in 2018 and enacted in 2019, and their rate to borrow the money.
I don't think it'll jeopardize the bonds. It'll just make them more expensive.
And there you go. Listen, this video is being made in 2023. This video, or 2024. This video actually took place in 2023. Do your math. 2018 to 2023, 5 years later, ACC is just now bringing this up. This is a problem even that they have. So anyway, let's continue. And even Senator Amy Gailey said the interest rate was higher, and it is. It's considerably higher, and the Alamance County taxpayers are on the hook for that.
They're less appealing. Long run, spend the money now versus that. So my comment is I want to agree with you 100%, Sandy, in what you said about ABSS obviously has the cash. You all have the cash to hire these companies to come in and do the work starting tomorrow morning or tonight, whatever the nice gentleman said. You have the cash, but you have commitments for that cash that are very, very important to fix the underlying issues. So why spend the cash on the mold if your roofs are still going to leak, right? That makes perfect sense. So I don't understand, or it would seem to me, let me say it that way, that it would be fair for the county to say, we got it. We hear you. It's going to probably cost $5 million to fix the mold in the schools. Could be a little more, could be a little less.
Oh my goodness, that is a huge understatement. $5 million to clean up the mold, and I know this is an armchair quarterback here, but it costs $25 million, and you really at this point don't know, as the commissioner stated earlier, you just don't know the cost. You can speculate, you can say what you think it is, might be a little more, a little less. Listen, they're still walking schools at this point, and in the next meeting, they're going to come up and say there's many more that have this mold issue that have been identified with a mold issue. So this is not good. A good statement to be made because the situation it could be, without having that information, you're making a statement that is just way off base. You just don't know.
The county is going to say, we can't loosen up our cash now. Y'all pull the cash out and put it on the table and take care of it now. And we will backfill it, or we will take care of it in the long run. We will give you that commitment. You pay for it now, we'll come in and pay for it later. Because we understand the most important thing is getting the children in the classroom and having facilities that are safe for the students and the people who work here.
And I can agree with having a safe place, but don't forget about the taxpayer as well. Don't forget about what it's going to cost people who live in Alamance County. I agree with you. It's very important, but you've got to work out the mechanics. You've got to work out the details. You've got to work out the funding. How is this going to be paid for? And I just don't think it's as simple as saying ACC has the cash to do this. They have some of it, and they're going to utilize that, and they may have the majority of it. I know that eventually the county commissioners had to give some to that end, but I just think you've got to take everyone into consideration at this point also, not just a few, but getting the kids in school is vital. It's important, but you've got to have a plan that considers all and the most wise usage of money and how it's to be used.
So I think that I want to go back to how Commissioner Paisley opened the meeting saying, well, we're going to think about it. And we got to get some, it's reasonable to have information. That's what this whole meeting was about, was getting the information. Well, now we got it. We know that ABSS has the cash. We know what it was for. County, why don't y'all say, you spend the $5 million, we'll make sure that within the next 6 months, a year, whatever's reasonable, we'll make sure that we make it up to you so we can get these children back in school now, not dither around and not make a decision and make parents have to figure out next Tuesday, what am I going to do with my children this week? I would like to see the county articulate a commitment that they will make it right in the long run. You can't say you'll make it right now, obviously. That's fair. But in the long run, that you'll make it.
Correct me, because I'm just asking this. In our capital plan, we're looking at all the things that we've got going on. Did we set aside $10 million for a future, almost $78+ million courthouse?
We had set aside.
I'm just asking, because I'm asking everything about everything.
There's also money and our art money. The federal government released $10 million that could go to almost anything.
Right.
We've held ours because we have this expansion. It's going to have to be in the near future. They spent theirs on a bonus.
Okay, Commissioner Thompson brought up the issue. She's bringing up capital funds for the county. I think they'd put $10 million aside for this future, I believe they call it a justice center or justice building for future justices or courts, judges, courts, things like that. And so she's asking everything about everything. And, and then John goes on and explains, hey, we set this aside because they have added, I think, another judge to our area. And so now they're going to need a larger area to accommodate all of these issues. And so then John makes a statement. He says, we used it. We've set ours aside. We're still holding it, but they gave theirs as a bonus to the teachers. Now, this is where it gets really interesting.
Right now, it's not.
And
He said, she said, right now is what we're in here for.
Shame on us, right? Shame on us for taking care of our teachers.
That bonus was
Still don't have
to
a-
maintain and keep teachers because they are bleeding. I can show you right now, just last month, they're bleeding to Orange County and Chatham County, and we'll be glad to show you if you'd like to see it, Mr. Paisley.
Can you answer my question?
Yes.
I'm going to interrupt here. I mean, Mr. Ing, I'd like to see that report as to the numbers. I would love to see the metrics because I'd like to see it measured. What's not measured doesn't get improved. I'd like to see that. And then you have to ask yourself, why are they leaving? You act like the only reason would be money. Could it be discipline? Could there be other issues the reason they're leaving? I mean, I'm okay with hearing those comments, but I would like to know, I'd like to have more information on that, so he says they're bleeding to Orange County. Well, and listen, the state pays all of the teachers pretty much the same based on their time of service. But I know that different counties will add a supplement to that. And I know Orange is pretty high. There's certain areas that pay a good supplement, but I think just making statements like that, you gotta evaluate it a little bit more deeply instead of just throwing it out there. We're losing them. We'll talk more about that later, not in this video, but it'll be a discussion for another video.
There is a $10 million revenue replacement amount that could be appropriated as the county commissioners take.
Okay.
They're not
That's all I wanted to ask.
So I think we're also hearing that there's a potential $8 million unallocated of ESSER funds. Similar to that, we did find an article that Pender County used ESSER funds for education this past year. So we feel pretty confident that we could explore that further.
Okay.
Well, according to the media, nobody's ever had mold at any schools around here. That's what I read.
Point of clarity. Point of clarity for the comment about the HVAC. I was hoping this was not going to come up in this meeting because we have debated it for 2 years. I was one of the 4 that made it. And I will not apologize for rewarding the teachers for that pandemic and for what they gave to our students and to this county. So I was one of the 4 and I'm proud of it. And it was our board decision. The majority of our board voted to redirect those funds and it was our right to do that.
Okay, so now this is a major discussion even now about some of the funds. Commissioner Paisley had said that the school board had taken their $10 million or a portion of $10 million and given it as a bonus to the teachers. And ABSS chair Sandy Ellington Graves said that she wished it hadn't become a point of discussion in this meeting, but since they did, she says they decided to do that as a board because that was what was best for their teachers. And they did redirect them. I know there was some conversation about were they already allocated to HVAC systems or allocated something in the school, roofing or something like that. Well, I'm not sure exactly where they were, but the word was redirected. I'm not sure if they were in a savings. I don't know, but we'll find out more about that later. But they did take the money and gave teachers a bonus during that time. And what do you think about that? Do you think they should have redirected funds and given the teachers during that time a bonus, or do you think the money would have been better used to use for HVAC systems or use for roofs to stop leaking? That's a decision you'll have to make, but continue to listen to what is said.
I find it very interesting that we are here today talking about redirecting the $26 million that we left in that fund for mold remediation. And we have been scolded for 2 years for redirecting $10 million out of that fund.
I can tell you why you were scolded.
Puts kids back in school.
Yeah, the 8 million is not a reappropriation. That is
I'm
what
talking-
left.
yeah. And the 10 million that we redirected, it did put the kids back in school, Mr. Paisley, because at that time we needed the teachers to teach.
Yeah.
And that's why we did the $10 million.
Let me say this. I'm not sure if you heard Commissioner Lashley say, I'll tell you why you were scolded. And he didn't say anything else. And you have to take a position. Do you think the board did the right thing by paying the teachers? Because the teachers, they needed the teachers in the classroom. If you don't have teachers, What good? Where are you going to put the kids? Who's going to teach the kids? I mean, it's something you have to think about. But is it good to do that and take the money away from roofing or HVACs that could keep the air clean or keep the water out, keep mold out? I mean, that's something that you as a voter will have to decide on who made the right decision. One thing I do like and appreciate, whoever it comes from, is their willingness to take ownership of the vote. And I appreciate that. So I appreciate them. And whether they're right or wrong, you'll have to discuss that with them and see if their argument holds up or whether it does not. So
In session, I believe before our recess, we were hoping to move towards closing out our meeting. I wanted to take a minute and just go through our quick objectives. We define the situation. Are we in agreement? Define the situation as a group. We've talked about solutions. Talked about how we pay for it and what that's going to look like, and the commitment we can get here from those present at the table, and then how we can get our kids to start back in school. We are beyond our 5 o'clock meeting time. I'm certainly not my intention to by any means rush this, because I think it is a very deliberate and intentional conversation. Any closing remarks from anybody on where we go from here? Yes, Mr. Carter.
I think there, a couple of issues I've seen in this whole process that I think we need to try and come up with a new way to address. Obviously, some of this stuff is coming up and we're not seeing it for whatever reason. I've been told at one time that the principals were required to walk the schools on a daily basis and inspect things like this. Apparently, that's no longer happening. There are companies out there that will do this sort. They'll do inspections on your buildings. They'll schedule things, heat and air, repair work, check it, make sure it's right. If the school system needs to look at something like that, I think that's a serious issue. We don't need to be back at this table again, ever. I think all of us, none of us here want to go back to this whole scenario last 2 weeks again. We know our parents, our teachers, our students don't want to go through a week. I won't include the students. They might like the extra week. But anyway, parents and teachers are not looking forward to this 5-day delay, and hopefully not longer than that. There are companies that will do the maintenance for us. There are other ways to look at maintenance. If we've got a problem getting the maintenance done and keeping the systems up, we need to do a hard assessment of it, find out what alternatives are available to us, whether it's a third-party vendor or some reallocation of county and ABSS assets as far as employees are concerned, to get the job done to keep us from getting back at this point again.
I can agree with him on the majority of that, but in principles, I agree they should walk through school. They're the owners of that building. They're the lead person there. They should take ownership of that. But at the same time, they're an educator. They're not construction workers. They're not probably going to be able to identify certain things, but it wouldn't hurt, maybe, I think, as Commissioner Carter said, to maybe get someone from the county who knows some things. Maybe it could walk around with them. Maybe do it in a week. I don't know. You can work out the details on that. Some schools are larger, some are smaller, but get them to do that. And like you said, make a list of things that need to be addressed, identified as problems, and go with it. But you got to start somewhere. You've got to do something. And when I say something, I mean a plan. I'm just speaking off the cuff here. I've already thought about several things that could be done and actually implemented. So, well, let's continue on.
Mr. Carter, I got a response to that. I just wonder if anybody in this room knows about the Environmental Health Services website. You can go to this website, type in any school that you want to, and you can go back for 10 years to see what the violations that the Environmental Health Department put on all of these schools. And it's broken down by certain things like toiletries, locker rooms, school rooms. And in the Environmental Health website, Commissioner Carter, you can actually see where the environmental health has directed in their assessment and their comments to a particular classroom. And you can go back for 10 years. I agree with what you said about the maintenance issue, but I do believe that this is a valuable resource that's free. You can go, anyone can do it today, starting, you can go to all 37 schools and you can see the violations that were given to them by the environmental health department. And this is a solution that you were talking about before. I think it's mandatory. Dr. Butler, I would certainly hope you take this under advisement. I think it's mandatory when the Alamance County Environmental Health Services showed up at their school, they are a principal responsible for that school. They should get a demerit if they don't walk with the environmental health assessment team, because they can't go through the school by themselves. Somebody's got to come with them. It's my understanding that not all those times principals are there to observe. And I think that they should take a secretary or someone to take notes, or maybe this should be mandatory for all principals so they would know. It's my understanding that if a teacher in that particular school saw a leaky roof, that they would report it to the principal. So that's why I come up with this. If the principal should be with our county environmental health team when this assessment is, so then they'll be able to.
Agreed.
Basically, let me add to that. North Carolina General Statutes require our Alamance County Health Department to do an inspection of every school every year. They cannot shut down the school. The health department can shut down a restaurant or a grocery store, but they cannot shut down a school. That report, and I talked to our health director several times this past week and over the weekend. He said that most, not all, of the schools had environmental mold issues every year. And he went back to 2017, and the same schools repeatedly had the same mold year after year. The report, I said, well, who did you give the report to? Well, we're required to give it to the principal, was the answer. Did you give it to the principal? No, the principals by a majority were not available. Well, who did you give it to? Well, they assigned somebody, usually a janitor, to do the walkthrough with us. Well, who did you give the report to? I gave it to the person they said that was responsible, who typically was the janitor. So then I said, well, did anything go to the superintendent? And his response was, you have to score below a 70 for it to go to the superintendent pursuant to the statute. And no school had below a score of 70.
You see, that's a breakdown in the process. There's got to be an SOP, a standard operating procedure for this. And then there's got to be somebody that makes sure or holds the people accountable to make sure this process is held to, it's followed. And I think that it's just you just have to hold people accountable. And I know people say, well, we've got a lot going. I understand that, but that's what takes place in a private sector job. In fact, they have to work hard too, because they have to compete with other people. They have to compete with other businesses. They have to make a profit. They have to show a profit. And I'm just saying, if you need to put this process in place to ensure that these documents is something as simple as documents. They didn't even make it to the superintendent. They've got to be held accountable. There's got to be responsibility and accountability so that these things, someone makes sure every time this happens that these reports make it into the hands of the right people. And that needs to be identified in the SOP. Who does it need to go to? I would say every single report needs to go to the superintendent and a copy to each board member. That's what I would say, because they are the ones, as I think one president had it on his desk, he said, the buck stops here. The buck stops there. It's just like it stops with the county commissioners. So I encourage them, put an SOP in place and then make sure it's followed, make sure it's adhered to, hold people accountable.
So therefore, it went to the designee of the principal. So, and I don't know whether it went to the superintendent or the school board. Yeah, that's your internal issues, but most of the schools did not pass year after year after year. Oliver Elementary is a really good example. We had the mold and mildew between the big fascia and the inner wall in 2014-15 when I was the county commissioner. We funded it, not completed. 2017, cannot verify this, but I was told by one of the prior commissioners, we then funded it again, same improvement in 2017. Again, right now, you're just now getting around to do that mold remediation at Hall River Elementary. So the problem is we keep funding as the county commissioners. And I am praying, literally praying that Sandy, with the superintendent, with each of you school board members, there has not been transparency in the past. There has not been cooperation in the past. And I am begging you guys and gals, it takes too many years, I call everybody guys, sorry, to be more transparent, to be upfront with us, and when we give you the money, make the repair, not 2 or 4 or 5 or 7 years later. Do it now.
And I can agree with that. I can agree with that assessment. And I can also say, you know, they have to come to you guys for money. The county commissioners, you have your money. You have ways of getting money. You don't have to ask anyone, but you are answerable to the taxpayer. So I would say that is a good explanation, Commissioner Paisley, for all of county government. Every government entity in this county that should adhere to what you just said.
And that's the one thing. We've identified 6 areas right here tonight. You indicated, I think your number was 26 million still in URSA money. You've got 1.8 million in lottery funds. You've got 17 million in capital reserve. You've got some less than 3.3 million, because you probably have already spent 112 for July and August. But you've got part of that 3.3 million still available. You have 7.5 million in bond funds, or that was not available. I've got which. You've got a circle. And then you've got $800,000 in fines and fees and so forth that you receive from school. And that's a moving fund. You guys, right now, your meeting tonight, have the funds to hire these folks to make the repairs and do it right now. It doesn't matter what we as the commissioners do. We have our next meeting on August 5th. Ms. York and I will.
September 5th.
September, thank you. September 5th. Ms. York and I will set the agenda, and I talk to each and every board member. And we have input of commissioners as to the agenda. So we can put this, but we really can't put this on our agenda for September the 5th, which is a Tuesday because of Labor Day, until we have hard numbers and know what your real needs are. We can help you make up, as Ms. Gailey pointed out, shortfalls, but we need hard numbers. We need to know what those needs are. And that really has not been provided to our board today.
Mr. Bass at the break, we talked to him about some numbers. He has some numbers now, if you'd like to hear them.
But based on his 400,000 per, if you have 21 schools, which is the number I think they gave us.
No.
You got some new numbers.
This is for Broadview, Cummings, and Williams.
All right, that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you, sir.
But I still think you guys have the money, make the repairs, get our kids back in school, and then come to us with additional numbers. Please.
So based on just the information that I have, which is the same as y'all, but roughly the way we would do it is we would provide a ROM with a scope of work, basically exactly how we would clean it, where we would clean it, what we would clean it with, how many air changes we would do, exactly what we would do to each area, what we would do with the soft goods, what we would do with the hard goods. All of that's detailed out. Okay? And then, we would preference, basically I'm just doing this, but basically we had to do everything. I just took an average of 6 foot and down. Cummins, rough number. So the way it works is it's a time and material contract. That means that the board would only pay for actual, that means labor, materials, equipment, everything. All of that is audited and turned in. So it's supporting documentation. So every crew sheet, every time card, everything's turned in. So a ROM is a general idea, and so Cummins would be $1.2 million. Broadview would be $750,000. Williams would be $1.55 million. And that was just rough numbers. So here's the way that works. That would be the way the scope was written, but wrong. Let's just say that Cummins, we do it, and the bill is $1,050,000. That's all you pay is $1,050,000. The problem with lump sum is the board always gets hurt because a contractor has to build so many variables into it. Well, if this happens, if this happens, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? Well, let's just say that, you do it lump sum, the board loses, the contractor wins. Okay? This way is we have to prove everything we do. And this is the most factual, accurate, consistent, and transparent billing system. That's the reason why it's all done in commercial level. So the board gets a complete third party, not mine. It's actually reviewed by the national subject matter expert in time and material billing. His team, they send it back, audited, reviewed, present it to the client. You receive every bit of the backup documentation, and it's detailed out from every single school.
So for clarity, that's about $3.5
$3.5 million for them 3 schools.
You also gave us a number of schools, 21. We really don't know what the problem is.
Those schools have been reported to us that there may be mold. I'm sorry, Mr.
Oh,
Bass.
yeah,
Thank you, Mr.
And
Bass.
we're in the process of walking every campus to determine if there is a need there. I would say the probability of more schools having mold is right. At this level, we don't know. But right now, if these 3 schools can be fixed before Tuesday, we can all go back to school on a normal day.
I think that's great.
So do we, yes, Mr. Bell?
I want to, I think somebody mentioned earlier that, maybe it was you, Mr. Hook, that the guy that's looking into this said that Cummings was the worst that he has ever seen. Okay. I'm looking at, yes, we'll fix these 3, but I want to know district-wide where we're at. What is a ballpark figure district-wide? If Cummings is 1.2 million and it's the worst that he's ever seen, can we get a ballpark figure
The total scope.
on all of our buildings?
We can, we just got to get the square.
That's where I'm at.
I can give you a rough idea of what it is. If every building was affected. I just need the total square footage.
Sent Bass a spreadsheet that has email that has sites. It doesn't include new bond, to add in the new bond additions.
So, but to follow up that, this discussion about all these pots of money and where we can pull this and pull that from. Within that, is there enough money to do that and give him the go-ahead tonight, today, to go across district-wide?
Now, before you answer that, I mean, it just seems like if you're keeping up with the numbers, if you take all the money, the pots of money, and you have it available, yeah. But I mean, the 26 million that you had for the POs for Summit, for the HVAC, you can't use that. And so the answer, if you've been writing these things down, and I've watched several of the people at the table, and only a few are writing down anything. I had trouble keeping up with these numbers myself, but once I started writing them down, I got a good grasp of them. So listen to the answer that he gets back, and really should already really know.
Based off of the numbers that we're already starting to see.
I don't think so.
You have to have a comment from the commissioners. And I believe Mr. Marsh had a comment.
So I'm just a business guy, so I probably don't know a whole lot. I want the board of commissioners to explain this to me. So I just did some research while we were sitting here, and I see that the percent of county given to our schools in Alamance County is 16.9%. Y'all, county commissioners, help me with this.
That's wrong.
16.9% of the county budget. Is that's what I got off the internet. So Orange County is 36.8%. So you're saying that those are wrong?
Correct.
That's operating. There's operating and then there's capital.
So
You put it all together, then it's
this is percentage county given to the district, right?
probably, I think that part is, for operations, like for the teacher supplement and things like that. The bonds, the capital stuff is separate from that. So it's more than.
So Chatham County is at 34.33%. Randolph County is at 22%.
Yeah, let me say this. You got to do that's really not research. That's just a Google search. I would, if you're going to do real research, you've got to get reports, get into the numbers, and to see exactly what that percentage is. So again, that's a Google search. That's not research.
Guilford County's at 45.62%. Durham County is at 26.6%. And then if you go down to Caswell County, or let's go to Wake County. Wake County is 49.31%. So my numbers are totally off. I mean, I think that's where our problem really is. Is you know, we're under. I mean, we don't even fit 20%. We're not even 20.
And based on those numbers, if that is true, I don't know that it is. It doesn't sound like it is. But if that were the case, if that is the case, then I would agree with you. That is where the problem is. But we've got to do more research to determine to see if exactly what has been said is accurate and true. So yeah.
The numbers that you just gave me are not correct. You can actually base this on, we have our finance lady here. I'm sure she can tell us how our budget for the whole county last year's budget was $214 million and a half. By my estimations, every $3 goes to your school system. Now, I have my finance lady who can tell me if I'm off. That's the rule of thumb that I have used for the past 3 years. Because the largest two districts that I have to take care of are schools and sheriff, and it comes to about 2/3 of all the money that I get.
All right. I have one quick question and then motion. Mr. Hook, when do you anticipate having information about schools other than Cummings and Burlington? We have teams walking them daily. Testing something today. Test results should start coming in daily. School. They're testing the air. School. Usually inspecting it to do that. Give us feedback on
The 15 to 20 schools that were reported to us are the priority right now.
Yes, sir.
We don't know what the scope is on any of them, right?
Not yet.
It could just be something on book.
Could be. Or could be the other end.
I certainly wish we had more information. Lack of information, short timeline, it makes this a very difficult decision. But you don't always have all the information that you want in life, and sometimes you just got to make a call. I'm going to make a motion about the first 3 schools. I'm going to make a second motion about recessing this meeting to perhaps Wednesday to get more information to decide about the other schools. I don't think I have enough information right now to decide what to remediate in other 3 schools, what not to remediate, what level it requires. I just don't have any information about that. But I've got information about 3 schools. So I will move that we.
Sir, I'm sorry. We have not noticed the public.
I'm making a motion, Mr. Chairman. I'm not out of order. I'm making a motion. I have the floor. I have the floor. I'm making a motion.
The monies.
The county commissioners allocate up to $3.5 million, not to exceed, from capital reserves in the county's that's ABSS capital reserves that are unallocated to cover mold remediation at Williams High School, Cummings High School, and Broadview. That's my motion.
I'll second it.
The motion is out of.
Excuse me. Give me 1 second. There was a motion and I
Capital
believe.
reserves for county or.
County dedicated for ABSS.
So you're not going to require ABSS to pony up anything.
That's going to be my second motion. My second motion.
There's a motion. I believe there was a second. I believe Mr. Paisley believes it's out of order, so Rick and or
Actually, a
Adam?
motion for, of being out of order precedes a vote on that motion. So, Mr. Stevens?
I'm trying, I understand the motion. I understand, I believe that there was a second. I'm trying to understand the basis for which we believe the motion was out of order.
Because we have not noticed the public, it has not gone before the oversight committee, it has not gone before the county and ACC and ABSS board. I think we have to.
You know, I just don't see this as needing to go before that board, the board that Commissioner Paisley just mentioned. That makes, to me, it makes absolutely no sense at all in this regard. But that's me, and I think the commissioners have every right to make the decision. We vote for them, and we vote for them to make these decisions. And whether it be right or wrong, I'm just saying, I think the commissioners have every right to make this decision. And anyway.
Give the public notice before we start voting on the monies. I think the motion itself is out of order.
I don't believe the motion's out of order.
I'll yield to council.
So it believe the rule for Mr. Stevens is the motion is not out of order.
And this is our board.
I'm just clarifying that for you.
I would just say, I have another motion that's going to get to the ESSER funds, and that for this motion for these schools, it is the motion that, and my comment is that we need to remove all doubt that ABSS mediate these three schools right now. More information, I don't have it. This is my call. I have another motion that deals with the other schools.
Where that 3.5 is coming from.
From the 7.9 in capital reserves that's dedicated to ABSS that's in your account right now.
So in essence, ABSS will be remediating this problem. It hasn't come to the county taxpayer yet. Thank you.
I'm sorry, repeat the motion, please.
We allocate up to cap $3.5 million for mold remediation, Williams High School, Cummings High School, and Broadview, paid out of ABSS capital reserves funds currently sitting at $7.9 million.
So Mr. Bass just told them it would be $3.5 million to clean Williams, Cummins, and Broadview, and then Commissioner Turner found a fund of money to use to utilize to remediate the mold until they have more information, and that's what's happening now.
Motion seconded. Mr. Lashley, comment. Mr. Carter, comment. I think the motion is out of order, but I'm not going to argue that point. I think our legal counsel has remedied that issue. It's on at this point. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I will vote aye as well at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My second motion is that we recess this meeting to Wednesday at 3:00, at which time we should have more information about additional schools. And I strongly suggest in that interim, we understand exactly what ESSER funds can fund, what ESSER funds cannot fund, and any additional remediation for those additional schools come primarily from the ESSER fund.
I'll second that.
And there you have part two of the mold remediation of the August 28th, 2023 meeting. What do you think? Do you think the commissioners did the right thing by just remediating the schools that they had information about, or should they have waited, or should they just have funded the entire amount that would have been based on the square footage per the entire ABSS school system? Well, you make that decision. And listen, we're going to come back August the 30th, 2023. Part one, we'll pick up there and we'll see what steps need to be taken. But I got news for you, as most of you probably know. More schools are infected. Take care. This is Alamance County Talks Politics. Stay informed, get involved.